Shalom and welcome back to Scripture and Prophecy. It's Monday morning, April 9th, 2018. And today we are continuing our study in the book of Exodus. I'm ready for chapter 13 today. Actually, it's 13 and 14 because 13 is not very long. So that's what we're going to be dealing with today. Chapter 13 deals with the consecration of the firstborn, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It talks a little bit about the pillars of cloud and of fire that led the Israelites through the wilderness by night and by day. And then chapter 14, we have the crossing of the Red Sea. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. And I thank you for joining me. The website is www.scriptureandprophecy.com. That's where you go to find there's a podcast player there where you can find all the archives to all the previous episodes. It's a SoundCloud player. That's also where you go to support this mission, this work that I'm doing. You support me and my family as well as the podcast itself. So, all right, without further delay, let's just dig right in because we've got 2 chapters to get through this morning. And we're going to start with chapter 13, Book of Exodus, King James Bible. Exodus 13, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine. Now, if you look at a Tanakh and you look at some commentary in there, it says that this they describe this, the conclusion of the Sidra consists of 2 passages, both which refer to the holiness of the firstborn and the obligation to teach future generations about the miracles of Exodus. And so that's the viewpoint that they have, is that the firstborn is holy, is always holy to the Lord, dedicated to the Lord, and that there's an obligation to continue to hand down the stories of what took place at the time of Exodus. So let's move forward here. Verse 3, And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of the hand of the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall be no leavened bread eaten. This day came you out in the month of Abib. And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and the 7th day shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, This is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year. And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware unto thee and to thy fathers, he shall give it to thee, that thou shalt set apart unto the Lord all that open the matrix, and every firstling that cometh out of the beast which thou hast, the males shall be the Lord's. And every firstling of an ass that shall redeem with a lamb, and if thou wilt not redeem it, then thou shalt break his neck. And all the firstborn of man among thy children shalt thou redeem. And it shall be when thy son ask thee in time to come, saying, What is this? Thou shalt say unto them, By the strength of the hand of the Lord brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that the Lord slew all of the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sanctify to the Lord all that open the matrix, being males. But all the firstborn of my children I redeem. And it shall be for a token upon thine hand, and for frontals between thine eyes, for by strength of hand the Lord brought us forth out of Egypt. And so, we have the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which follows Passover. And the idea of leavened, at least in the or at least in the New Testament, is that it represents sin. And that the reason for this unleavened bread was this idea of getting that sin out of your life. And as a matter of fact, if you look at Matthew chapter 16, Jesus warns his own disciples about the Pharisees and the leaven of the Pharisees. He says, verse 6 in chapter 16 of the book of Matthew says this: Then Jesus said unto them, Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. And then, of course, we have all the information about the firstborn, how it's, what it represents. You sacrifice the firstborn of the beast to the Lord. It's this picture, it's this reminder that what God did in Egypt. And then, of course, like we talked about at the very beginning, you have the redemption of the firstborn child and how it's given to God. Verse 17, And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, Lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. So they could have went the way of through the land of the Philistines, which would have been easier. It was closer. But God decided to lead them through the wilderness instead, because he didn't want to immediately lead them out of the bondage of Egypt into war with the Philistines, because the people would then murmur and feel bad and feel sorry that they even left Egypt, and they'll return to Egypt to be slaves. So instead, he's leading them through the wilderness, as a period of time to strengthen them and to grow them. And it really can be a metaphor for our own lives. Verse 18, But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up hardness out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you. Now that part I had missed several times that I've read through the book of Exodus. And, it's very interesting that Moses took the bones of Joseph and did what Joseph commanded, which was, do not leave my bones here, right? Carry my bones away when the Lord will visit you. Verse 19, let me read that again. It says, And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you. Verse 20, And they took their journey from Succoth, and encamped in Etham, in the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of a fire to give them light, to go by day and night. And he took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of the fire by night from before the people. Chapter 14, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Phil-Hathroth, between Migdal and the sea, over against Baal-Zephon. Before it shall ye encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them, And I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was told to the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot, and he took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and the captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with a high hand. Now, real quick, as you can see, once again, God is hardening Pharaoh's heart and causing Pharaoh to pursue after the Israelites, because God is not yet done judging Egypt for their sin. And, they've been destroyed on every aspect, their crop, their economy, their firstborn children have been killed. And now God is leading their military. The last might of Egypt is being led to a confrontation with the Israelites. And God is doing this so that he can show them that he is who he says he is. Verse 9. But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea beside Pith-Haroth before Baal-Zephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, Because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us to carry us forth out of Egypt? And of course, as you can see, they're already stricken with fear, right? They're already murmuring. It's not been 48 hours yet, right? Or it hasn't been very long, because we're dealing with the 7 days of unleavened bread. Truth is I don't know how long it's been. But it's not very long within the story, and the Israelites are already murmuring, saying, wishing they hadn't left Egypt, because of the fear of the situation. I mean, we also have to understand, yes, they've seen all these miracles, but human beings are human beings, and we're quick to forget, right? And now what they see is an army circling them, or coming up upon them. And of course they're afraid. They've got children, they've got people they care about. And they're asking Moses, have you brought us here to die in the wilderness, because there wasn't enough graves in Egypt? Verse 12, Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, ye shall see them again, no more forever. Now that's probably my favorite passage that we're going to read today. In all this whole epic story of the Red Sea, my favorite passage is that one right there. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. That could be a word for us today. As we're seeing, darkness really enclose around us, around the world, and the whole world is turned against Christianity, and they hate us, and they hate our Savior, and they hate everything good and wholesome, and they love everything wicked and evil. And I see what's going on in Syria, and I see what's happening in our own backyards, and how the walls are closing in on us, and most Christians don't see it. And it's causing me to get a little anxious. I'm thinking, man, was God going to ever show up? Is he ever going to do anything? And Moses is saying here, and like I said, it could be a word for us today. Fear not. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. And maybe that's a word for you today, and a word for your heart. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. Verse 14, The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Sometimes we need to keep our mouth shut. Stop murmuring. You want to see the salvation of the Lord? Be still, be quiet, and wait for it, and watch for it. Verse 15, And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch thy hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. And I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon all his host, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed, and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face, and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and a darkness to them. But it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night. And he made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground. And the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand, and on their left hand. And the Egyptians pursued, and they went in after them in the midst of the sea, even all of Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked into the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily. So the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the sea, and the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord, and believed the Lord, and his servant Moses. And that, my friends, is chapter 13 and 14 of the book of Exodus. And a very climatic story, very famous story. And there's a lot there, and it's very amazing. And I recommend that you go through and you read it for yourself again, or listen to the story more than once. But like I said, that the verses that really stuck out and spoke to me was 13 and 14. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Well, the podcast blessed you this morning, and gave you a great lift spiritually to go into this week, this early Monday. And I just ask that you be praying for me and for my family and for our well-being, and be praying for your country. And we need to really be praying for the people of Syria. My heart is really going out to them. All the suffering that's happening over there. I just saw a report this morning that there was more gassing. And of course, it's, children. How much of that is true and how much of that is propaganda, I'm not sure, but we need to keep those people in our prayers, because, that's really where the church began, and there's a lot of our brothers and sisters that have suffered horribly over there, and we need to be thinking about them and praying for them. All right, that's all I got for you this morning. Lord willing, I'll be back with you again on Wednesday. Peace and grace be with all of you, and until next time, God bless.